She sat alone because she had learned that alone was safer. The transit hall of Mer Station stretched wide and cold, a cathedral of glass and alloy suspended above a violet gas giant. Thousands passed through every cycle, traders, diplomats, mercenaries, pilgrims, but no one sat beside the alien woman on the far bench near the viewport. No one ever did. She kept her hands folded in her lap, long fingers tipped with faintly iridescent nails. Her skin carried a soft dusk blue hue, marked by pale lines that traced old fractures where bioplating had once grown wrong. Her left leg rested stiffly, joint reinforced with an external brace of dull silver metal. The brace hummed quietly, keeping her upright. People noticed. They always noticed. They noticed the limp, the scars, the way her eyes, large, luminous, and silver-ringed, never quite met theirs. They noticed the insignia burned into her collarbone, the mark of a failed Bond candidate. On her world, that mark meant something simple and final. Unchosen. Her name was Tareen. She believed no one wanted her. Jonah Hale arrived on Mer Station with a duffel bag, a worn jacket, and a habit of noticing what others avoided. He had been a combat engineer during the border conflicts, human auxiliary to 3 alien coalitions that no longer existed. When the fighting ended, he learned something uncomfortable. Peace did not need him either. So he traveled. He fixed generators, reinforced habitats, repaired flood walls on dying moons. He stayed just long enough to be useful, then left before people could decide what to do with him. On Mer Station, he was waiting for a delayed shuttle. He scanned the hall for an empty seat and saw the alien woman alone by the window. He noticed the brace. He noticed the mark. He noticed the way others angled their bodies away from her bench, as if loneliness were contagious. Jonah hesitated. Not because she frightened him, because he understood that kind of solitude. He walked over and sat down. Not too close. Not too far. Just beside her, leaving space enough to show choice. Tareen's breath caught. Her shoulders stiffened, preparing for the familiar moment. The request to move, the insult disguised as concern, the silence heavy with judgment. None came. The human simply sat. He rested his forearms on his knees and looked out at the gas giant, its storms blooming like slow fire beneath them. Minutes passed. Her heart slowed. "You can tell me to leave," Jonah said quietly, without turning his head.
His voice was calm.
Neutral. Respectful. Tareen blinked. "No," she replied after a moment, her translator smoothing the musical edges of her native tongue. I do not require isolation. It is merely customary." "Customary for who?" he asked. "For those like me." He glanced at her then, not at her scars, not at the brace, but at her face. "And who's that?" Her fingers tightened together. "Unbonded. Incomplete. Incorrect." Jonah frowned, not in disgust, but confusion. "That sounds like someone else's rules," he said. She almost laughed. Almost. They sat in silence again, but it was different now. When the announcement chimed, another delay, groans rippled through the hall. Tareen flinched instinctively. Jonah noticed. "Crowds bother you?" he asked. "Yes," she admitted. "They evaluate." He nodded, understanding far too well. "If you want," he said, "there's a quieter maintenance corridor behind the observation ring. Bad lighting. Smells like coolant. People hate it." She studied him. "Why would you assist me?" He shrugged. "Because you look like someone who deserves a bench that doesn't judge." Her chest tightened painfully. No one had ever said that to her. They walked together. She moved carefully, brace clicking softly against the polished floor. Jonah matched his pace to hers without comment, without impatience. That alone felt revolutionary. In the corridor, they sat on a low-service ledge. Dim amber lights buzzed overhead. The noise of the station faded to a distant hum. Tareen exhaled, long and slow. "You are different," she said. He smiled faintly. "I get that a lot. Most notice my deficiencies first." "What do you notice first about me?" he asked. She tilted her head, studying him openly now. "You carry loss," she said, "but you do not weaponize it." Jonah swallowed. Yeah, he murmured. That sounds about right. They talked. About small things at first, station food, unreliable schedules, the way gravity felt slightly wrong near Mers equator. Then larger ones slipped in. Tareen spoke of her people, the Lethari, whose society revolved around bonded pairs. Injury during adolescence often disrupted the biological harmony required for bonding. Those who failed were set aside. Not exiled. Just quietly forgotten. I was not cruelly rejected, she said. That would have implied effort. Jonah felt anger coil in his chest. That's not kindness, he said. That's neglect dressed up as tradition. She watched him carefully. You speak as though I deserve better. You do, he replied without hesitation. The shuttle delay stretched into hours. They shared ration bars. Laughed, really laughed, when Jonah accidentally spilled nutrient gel down his sleeve. When Tareen grew tired, Jonah offered his jacket. She hesitated, then accepted, fingers brushing his wrist. The contact sent a quiet shock through both of them. Respect did not mean distance. It meant care. Trouble came in the form of voices. 3 Lethari males approached the corridor entrance, their crests flared with subtle color shifts, curiosity tinged with disdain. One of them noticed Tareen. Still lingering in public spaces? He said coolly. You risk embarrassment. Tareen shrank, old instincts rising. Jonah stood. Not aggressively. Just firmly. She's not embarrassing anyone, he said. You are. The males blinked, startled. You have no claim here, human. I don't need one, Jonah replied. I'm sitting with a friend. Friend. The word echoed in Tareen's chest like a heartbeat. The males withdrew, unsettled by something they couldn't categorize. Jonah sat back down. You okay? He asked. She nodded, eyes shining. No one has ever stayed, she whispered. When the shuttle finally arrived, neither of them moved immediately. Jonah checked his ticket. Different destinations. Listen, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm heading to a reconstruction job on Alara Prime. It's quiet. Blue skies. Gravity's gentle. She waited. They could use a cultural liaison, he continued. Or you could just visit. No expectations. Her voice trembled. Why would you invite me? Because I like who you are, he said simply. And because sitting beside you felt right. Tareen made a decision that terrified her. I would like that, she said. Alara Prime changed things. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into something that felt like belonging. Tareen helped mediate between settlers and native species. She laughed more. Walked farther. Sometimes left the brace off for short periods, trusting herself. Jonah watched her bloom with quiet awe. One evening, under a sky full of unfamiliar stars, she spoke the truth she had been afraid to name. I believed no one wanted me, she said softly, until you sat beside me without asking me to be different. Jonah took her hand. I didn't sit down to save you, he said. I sat down because you mattered. She leaned into him, careful, certain. This was not pity. This was choice. They never rushed it. Respect built something stronger than urgency ever could. When they finally bonded, by human law, by Lethari ritual, by shared consent, it felt less like a beginning and more like a recognition of 2 people who had been overlooked and found.